If we want to learn a movement skill, there are many approaches we can take to problem solve. In this video, I'll present a few different strategies and then show them applied to a specific skill. I'll also go over some common pitfalls and suggestions for further learning. The first strategy to unlock any skill is to understand what's happening. By this I mean deconstructing the pattern into its parts. It might sound really basic, but this dissecting, chunking approach into parts helps us understand which parts we can perform and which parts we're missing, allowing us to either unlock the skill immediately or program around our deficiencies. When observing a pattern, if there's something you can't describe or don't understand, this is a pointer to what's missing. It's here where we need to investigate further. With careful attention, we notice that with any skill, there is something happening at every level of the body. Your spine takes on a certain pattern, your weight might shift in a certain direction, your center of balance or axis might change. There's a lot of variables happening either sequentially or all at once. And the better we can identify these variables, the more effectively we can approach new skills. This intellectual understanding provides a foundation for physical learning and embodiment. When it comes to deconstructing skills, at first there's a way to divide without getting lost in too many details. As we progress, we can add more and more cues, bringing greater awareness and conscious choice to the body. For instance, in a press handstand, there's no need to point or flex your toes in order to initially perform the pattern. That can be added later. If we know which details are critical to the movement and which aren't, we can expedite our learning. Let's take a look at the backwards cartwheel as an example and observe what's happening. We see this pattern involves footwork, moving backward in space, placing the hands on the floor, arching the spine, getting the hips over the shoulders, bending the legs, taking steps with the hands, and pushing ourselves back into standing. Now we have a lot of cues to work with. At this point, we can attempt the pattern and begin to discover our deficiencies. I highly recommend filming yourself during this process. Not only does this provide documentation of your journey, but it offers a slightly more objective point of view. Often we might think we're performing the pattern correctly, but the reality is often different. Now we can see ourselves from the outside and attempt to make changes accordingly. If we notice that the pattern is too difficult or too complex to perform, we can find ways to simplify it. Here we employ the strategy of practicing regressions. Regressions act as a prerequisite to our desired pattern. They're often foundational and easier to access. Many regressions in the movement world are already known and discovered, so there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Everything we see is based on what came before. These complex patterns all evolved from some more foundational pattern, so keep searching and you will find. Identifying proper regressions involves asking the question, how can I make this seemingly difficult or impossible pattern easier to approach? How can I scale back, lower the intensity, or simplify the pattern? Let's take the backwards cartwheel as an example again. If we want to learn the backwards cartwheel, what might some regressions to this pattern look like? Some regressions might be keeping the hips low to the ground, staying in place rather than moving backward in space, lifting only one leg off the ground, taking only one step with the hand, and so on. Each of these regressions will help inform and problem solve for the skill. This strategy can be employed for any skill, so go out, explore, and have fun. Skill learning is also based in sensation. We all experience a pre-existing map of the body, a field of pulsing, tingling, and vibrating sensations that acts as our prior conditioning and determines how we use ourselves and respond in each moment. The better we can sense, the more accurate our ability to respond. I've found that body scanning techniques are a useful tool for building awareness of sensation. If a skill is too difficult, my experience is that it takes time for the body's pre-existing map to adapt to the map of what's required. Intellectual understanding of what's happening can only take us so far. It informs the process, but ultimately we have to physically repeat the pattern and build our map. If intellectual study is like online shopping, eventually we have to step away from the screen and try on the clothes to make sure they fit. We perform repeatedly, and the map of our body changes accordingly. One error in beginner skill building is trying to repeatedly perform the pattern without making adjustments. For instance, when trying to learn a hollow body handstand, kicking up over and over mindlessly without understanding why we're falling. A more efficient but less intuitive path would be practicing movements that are pattern adjacent that lead us toward the end goal. For instance, a hollow body handstand will likely require months of isolated pieces. You might build and prepare the wrists, do wall walks, or hollow body holds on the floor. While each of these patterns aren't the handstand, they allow us to build toward the handstand. It's the same thing for the press. We might need to isolate some of these foundational pieces before developing the coordination to combine them all. This is where following a process can be highly useful. Instead of wasting time circling the drain and running in place, a well-crafted program with a long-term vision can guide you in the right direction. Overall, the greatest impediment for any skill development is lack of consistency. We will only find progress through consistency, and if we have not yet achieved our desired skill, this is one of the first places to look. When combined with programming, process, and feedback, we'll find progress begins to accelerate. Of course, skill building involves all of us. It's important to examine all aspects of life, including lifestyle, nutrition, sunlight, attention, presence, community, and so on. Rest and sleep need special prioritization. I've found that when returning to a skill days, weeks, or sometimes months later, the map and connection of the pattern will have improved. Something might click overnight, pushing us closer to the skill, or bringing more awareness to a certain piece of the puzzle. If you are ever stuck, there's an endless well of inquiry to search through in every aspect of life. Overall, here are some questions I've found helpful to ask myself for unlocking any movement skill. What is happening? What am I missing? What is blocking me? Am I consistent? Do I have a process? Can I perform the regressions? Am I sensing? This video is not all-encompassing. I could go on and on about the importance of timing and coordination and how skills are based in mimicry, but I hope this helps for now. Wishing you well in each and every moment. Cheers.